Now, we're told by the right wing in this country not to politicize things if there's ever a shooting. If there's a shooting in America, they say, you're not allowed to talk about guns for weeks or months. It's just, how dare you ever politicize anything like that? A tragedy, how could you? Now, they politicize tragedies all the time. So when there was a shooting in Canada that happened recently, they said, oh, it's because Canada has too much gun control. Of course, nothing in the world has been more politicized than 9/11, and they did that immediately. So now there's a shooting in Paris. What's the right wing in America going to do? They're going to jump right into the mix. Here you go.
There's a long history of this White House being very, very reluctant to talk about terrorism, to call something terrorism. This was not one of the worst offenses that this administration has had. I mean, they did start out talking about extremism and an act of violence, but they pretty quickly called it terrorism because it was so obviously terrorism. What they haven't done is call it Islamic terrorism. But he didn't use the word Islam or Muslim once. He did make reference to an imam about 3 minutes in. But, you know, these acts were done by specific people with a specific ideology, and this White House is still incredibly gun-shy, no pun intended, about calling any attention to the fact that the people we're at war with aren't just sort of generic extremists off the shelf, but they're a specific ideology with a specific religious orientation.
Jumping right in to politicize it. Oh, the Muslims, let's go get the Muslims. Okay, now, I've raged about Muslim fundamentalists today. It doesn't mean all 1.6 billion Muslims did it. When I say that, people are outraged. How dare you not blame every other Muslim? How dare you treat Muslims like they're human beings when you know that they're a special class of people that we should reserve all of our hate for? Now, for the fundamentalists, go and look at my views on that. Okay, I am incredibly clear about that. But for the Jonah Goldbergs of the world, no, it's never enough. And if Muslims do it, you have to immediately say, Muslims, 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 right? Now, did Jonah Goldberg criticize the president after Anders Breivik killed 77 people in Norway? Now, a lot of the media in this country and other countries are saying this is the worst terrorist attack of what happened in Paris since the attacks in the UK. But wait a minute, in between was, of course, the subway attacks in the UK. In between was the Breivik attacks. He killed 77 people. But he was a Christian. He was a right-winger, and he was a white supremacist. You're not even allowed to say those things. Well, I mean, no, but that doesn't count as a Christian. He was crazy. I know the Muslims who do the shootings are perfectly sane, right? No, they're all crazy. I got news for you, and they're all fundamentalists, okay? But no, Goldberg jumps in to politicize immediately. Apparently, you're allowed to politicize under these circumstances, and you're allowed to say it's all because of Muslims. All right, now, we're nowhere near done. Let's still go with Fox News.
General, what do you think?
Well, this is a classical radical Islamic attack, Steve, and political correctness is killing us. This is a prime example. Until we hold the Arab world and the Muslim world accountable for letting this radical Islamic ideology, which, as I have said before, is as evil as Nazism, fascism, and communism, it is not a religion.
That last part is super ironic. It's also ironic this guy is considered a military analyst. His analysis is, it's the Arabs. I figured it out, okay? So earlier in that segment, he had criticized President Obama for not calling it what it is, as Jonah Goldberg just said as well. You've got to say that it's a religion. But he just said at the end of that clip, it's not a religion. So which one is it? Genius military analyst? Yeah, it's the fundamentalism, stupid. When we have a U.S. general that said in Somalia, I was fighting the demons, and I knew my God was stronger than his God. That guy's a lunatic. He happens to be a lunatic on our side, right? But no, you can't say that. Don't say anything bad about Christians. Don't say anything bad. Some Christians would have written letters, leaders of the Christian movement in this country have written letters to President Bush when he was in office saying, do not be equal with the Palestinians and the Israelis. It is important that you be unequal, that you never give the Palestinians a state. Why? Because we'd like Armageddon to come about where we all die. Of course, they don't think they're going to die. They think Jesus is going to suck them up into heaven. But they're considered rational and sane. The Muslims are the crazy ones. Look, were these Muslim fundamentalists that did this today crazy? Absolutely. How much clearer do I have to be? Okay? But all of a sudden, no. Everything that Muslims do, it's the Arabs, it's the Muslims. And what's your solution, genius military analyst? Let me guess. More war. And how's that turned out for us? We already did more war. not only did we attack Afghanistan because Al-Qaeda was based in Afghanistan, we also stayed there for a decade after Al-Qaeda was wiped out of Afghanistan, but we also went into Iraq where Al-Qaeda didn't even exist. We did all the war you want. Now we're in Iraq and Syria. We also did Libya. We also bombed Yemen and Somalia. And what happened? Well, there was a shooting in Paris anyway. Turns out your solution didn't work. All right, more from this genius.
These are automatic weapons, and they were clearly the cops outmanned. I'm getting a lot of tweets from people from Paris who said most cops choose not even to carry a gun. That, thankfully, is not the case in New York.
Thankfully. But with the current leadership in New York, and I'm referring to the mayor, the communist mayor you have up there, that may change. So I think that the world better wake up. We've been doing this for over 13 plus years after 9/11, and it's time that people remove the political correctness and hold the people accountable with global public opinion. Challenge them.
Okay, so two things there. Brian Kilmeade jumps in and says, they didn't have guns in France. Guns, guns, guns. Wait, I thought we were supposed to talk about guns after a tragedy like this. All of a sudden, when you like to make your argument, it's all about guns. They didn't have enough guns. They had more guns. More people could have gotten shot with good guys and bad guys and all that stuff. No, guns is the answer. Because, since we have so many guns in America, we never have any mass shootings here, right? You can't possibly make that argument, right? No. The one time here where you think, Paris doesn't have as many guns as America. Oh, there was a shooting there anyway. Oh, yes. I mean, the shootings here in America are far greater per capita. But I'm going to ignore all that and go see. It's like the idiots at Fox News, the same guys like Kilmeade, whenever it snows outside. See? What do you mean global warming? It snowed. And then the genius military expert comes back in and says, communist mayor in New York. I mean, we got to take these guys seriously. This is their analyst. About 3/4 of the people of New York voted for Mayor de Blasio. You think he's a communist? Communism barely even exists in the world. You old fogey, you 90-year-old idiot, senile moron. It's a communist. We got to hold people accountable. It's the Arabs and the Muslims. How are you going to hold them accountable? You're goading people on live TV. How are you going to hold them accountable? You know what's going to happen? Another guy's going to go into a Sikh temple and shoot Sikhs because he thinks they're Muslim. Oh, no, that comes out of nowhere, right? And then you say, no, don't politicize it. Don't politicize that shooting when the right-wingers do it. And then another guy goes and shoots a Holocaust museum. Another guy shoots a Jewish community center in Kansas. No, it's not right-wingers. It's not Christian. But they are Christian. They are right-wingers. There's more right-winger acts of terrorism, including, by the way, a bombing of an NAACP headquarters in Colorado today. But we're not allowed to talk about that. We're not allowed to politicize that because that doesn't fit what they want to do, which is to blame all Arabs and Muslims and start more wars. And he says, we've been going through this for 13 years. Well, then why don't you admit to me that after 13 years of war and trying it your way, it didn't work? All right. We're not even done with the geniuses at Fox News. One more.
They put cops in front of the office.
Yeah.
But they put cops with handguns. Maybe some didn't even have handguns. There are reports that some didn't even have a gun. These guys walked up heavily armed and blew away 12 people, walked out of there unscathed. Here's the point. There's been a very serious push from the left saying, let's not over-militarize our cops. That should put an end to that discussion right now. We should over-militarize. We should continue to do that. One last thought. I'm sorry.
No,
after 9/11, I was in the building in 9/11. Right after 9/11, there was the New York City cops, what they did was they did these shows of force. Heavily armed cops would walk around buildings. They'd show up anywhere. 12 cop cars would line up. They'd get out with the full body gear, with the machine guns, ready just to show the bad guys they're there. That's kind of gone away. Maybe it's time to bring it back.
You want
It's
to live
not
in a
intimidating.
police state, though?
No, I don't want. It's not a police state.
Okay, but
it's a safe state.
It's not a police state. It's a safe state. So did you hear his proposal there? We should have police walking around with machine guns at all times in New York and other places. God, that sounds so great. It sounds like the old Soviet Union. You know, you go to Cuba now, they still have guys with heavy weaponry walking around in case, anybody's going to criticize the leader of Cuba, right? That's what Castro does, okay? He wants guys walking around with machine guns so that you'll feel safe. And then every once in a while, they'll point them at you so you feel even safer. Okay, actually, there's, believe it or not, one more clip.
they shouldn't see us as the enemy. You know, we are not the enemy. We are not people they're hunting or combating.
I didn't feel like I was an enemy.
Okay, but that's
to a
the
cop on
difference
the
between the military and the police. And if you talk to police officers, they'll agree there has to be a difference.
But
and I understand after 9/11,
we are being hunted.
Yeah.
We are being hunted. Okay, ISIS has made it very clear. These guys are making it very clear when they enter that newspaper's offices. Yeah. We're here to get you. We are being hunted. So how would you like for us to be protected? What message do you want to send?
I think the best thing that Americans can do is arm themselves.
Me too.
Can we do a high five?
But you can't do that in the city.
New York cops, I don't feel like they look at me as the enemy. I feel like New York cops, of all the cops in this country, you can go up to them and have a conversation.
You're not a bad guy, though. If I'm a bad guy, I see a heavily armed cop on the corner, I may decide not to do the bad thing I was thinking about doing.
Sometimes bad guys don't look like bad guys.
Right, and that's my question about these guys, because if we know they were speaking unaccented French and they had, you know, ski masks on, do we even know what color they were, what the tone of their skin was? I mean, what if they didn't look like typical bad guys?
Wow. What if they didn't look like typical bad guys? We don't even know the color of their skin. How do we know if they were bad guys or not? Wow. By the way, just when you thought there was one voice of reason in that conversation, she turned around and said, no, it's not the cops who should be armed. It should be all the citizens who are armed, walking around ready to kill each other. It is a vat of ignorance, fear, and hatred over at Fox News. And there is no bottom to that barrel.